And we're live. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to the Bamf podcast, a very special episode of the Bamf podcast, because today we announced the winners of the... It sounds weird to say Bamfsies out loud, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Say it
It's
again.
only you. Yeah.
Yep, it's only you.
Okay. And we have assembled our crack team of judges who are familiar with this last year's slate of RPG superhero releases. And newcomer to the podcast, Mr. Alexander Thomas. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. Thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm a longtime fan of the show, and I'm very excited to have the chance to come and hang out with you guys today. I personally am a freelance writer who's done a lot of work in the superhero role-playing game community, most frequently for Green Ronin. I work on the Mutants and Masterminds line. I was the lead editor for the Basic Heroes Handbook that came out last year, and I was one of the lead writers on the Rogues Gallery project with Chris McLaughlin and Steve Kenson and all those wonderful folks. Crystal Frazier, too, who's been wonderful to me. And I'm just excited to be here and be part of it. I also work over at New Millennium Games with Walt as a contributor for their Mutants and Masterminds stuff.
I didn't know worlds collide. Holy shit. Okay, well,
It's fantastic.
thank you very much for showing up, sir. Appreciate that. And well, what's in your mouth, man? Are you chewing?
Drinking coffee.
Oh, all right. Very chewy coffee. That's
Very
Walter
chewy
Barrett.
coffee.
He is the head bottle washer over at Hazard Studios and their affiliate imprint, New Millennium Studios.
New Millennium Games.
There we go.
Please, Dominic Sumner is a very scary man. Do not have him come after me.
Or at least sell us tickets to watch that fight. And last but not least, in the lower hand corner of the Brady Bunch grid is Alice Peng, who also goes by Lala. And Alice is, you are the big person in charge of the Babies with Knives podcast, right?
I am the host and producer. I have a co-host as well.
Mm-hmm. That would be your better half, Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, but he's not around right now.
Oh, no worries. Thank you very much for coming out. And
Love being here every time.
hey, love having you. So I don't want to make this anticlimactic, but basically I announced the winners and we talk about what your guys' picks were. And I guess we could watch some YouTube clips of Harley Quinn or something to spice things up. But
You mentioned a buffet, but I'm not seeing. I mean, the prime rib looked
it's in the other
underwhelming.
room.
I was watching you eat chips.
Yeah, I was eating chips.
And it's not anticlimactic. This is the first year you're actually broadcasting the Bamf Awards, the Bamfsies. And
Yeah.
the past has just been like, here's your award, go away.
This is true. And we actually make up a papercraft award. I wish I had a physical one, but Aid makes up a very nice papercraft statue about that tall. It's a blue, purplish Bamf logo, and you can, I think the guy from Hero Games has it tagged up on his wall. So it's
Awesome.
it's prestigious. It's not quite like getting an Emmy. It's a little better than maybe getting a Grammy. But
Do you think maybe the first Oscars were given in a back alley somewhere by a guy named Oscar? He was like, "Hey, I really like your movie." Just like gave him a trophy and ran away into the jungle.
I appreciate your artistic contributions. Here, have this golden statue, and then fades into the all-concealing shadows of the night.
That'd be a weird thing. It's like, hey, I really loved your performance in this. Here's a statue of a naked man holding a pole.
Creepy.
I guess there's subtext there, right? I hadn't even thought about that.
Right? I just like, what do you want me to do? Is this, innuendo? I mean, what's going on?
Just put it on your mantle, somewhere you can see lots of things. All right.
I bet you Batman the Animated Series never had these problems.
Probably not. All right. So this year was actually one of the best turnouts for voters. It's our second best year. We've been doing this for like 7 years now, and we had over 1,500 people come out and vote in the Bamfsies.
Yes.
That's awesome.
You know what would be cool? How about we show the products that win as we talk about them?
That's fantastic.
So let me pull
That's
them up
awesome.
on drive-through quick. You guys do charming banter while I do this. Talk about why did DC choose to go with the 80s game instead of DC Adventures? Go.
Probably because DC owns the DC Heroes license completely.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And also retro's getting big again right now, and they just want to capitalize on that. So I think those two are really big factors. Retro's getting really big again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you look at the Star Wars box set that Fantasy Flight put out of the first edition West End games. I mean, that thing flew off the shelves. You really can't find them anymore. So obviously people are into some of the old gaming. And then, if you look at the current Kickstarter right now for Swords and Wizardry, an old box set of a 0 edition retro clone. And, people are running down the street covered in peanut butter yelling out, "Take my money." It's not hard to understand. People like that old school feel.
Yeah, and apparently Freddie Prinze didn't want to learn a new system anyway. I guess I can understand that.
It's that whole pendulum swinging back and forth thing. So we swung this way, now we're swinging that way. So in 10 years, we're going to be going, into the 2060s version of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, I wonder what won first place. I think we have a viewer watching us wondering that too.
Oh, do we? Let me go over to comments. Oh, we have that one particular viewer wondering that. Okay,
he's watching right now.
Hit the Streets, Defend the Blocks by Orc Lord Games, which just squeaked under the deadline for getting a product released in 2019, since they're publicly available. Just before we, close the door on that. This is the winner. This is number one. It's available right now on Drive-Thru RPG, and congratulations to Rich Rogers of Orc Lord Games. So way to go, Rich.
So Lala, you guys had them on the show not too long ago to play a little session. What'd you think?
I thought it was great. I actually nominated Rich Rogers and Hit the Streets, Defend the Block, and I was over there going, "Is it going to be out in time?" He's like, "Yes, it is." And on the last possible day, he got it up. I like it a lot. I think that they did a really great job with the creation of the block system. It takes that cooperative, interactive, creative creation process in the beginning where you're creating characters that interconnect, and it takes it to another level or a different twist of it where you're actually creating that community that you need to worry about. Is that schoolhouse going to be there in 2 days when the villain attacks, and then when it breaks, we need to fix it because it is our school, that kind of thing. So I really like some of the elements that it brought, even if you don't end up playing it long term, which is not meant for a long-term game. It's meant for like 3 to 6 sessions, but it's a great way to start a campaign so that you have a focus, especially if you like to play street level.
Yeah, I think it's good to acknowledge sometimes that a lot of times Supers games will find themselves in the 3 to 6 game kind of, what are we playing between D&D campaigns sort of thing. And, just acknowledge it and be cool with it. And yeah, number 2 is Tiny Supers by Alan Barr. Yay!
Yay!
We need to have
Congrats, Alan.
like sound effect rolls so that we can have the huge, everybody clapping.
Yes, we do. Yay!
Yay! A round of applause.
Yep.
So, Lala, you have. I can't believe I just called you Lala. I've been fighting that for so long.
That's fine. You can call me Lala. Most people call me Lala. If you're my friend, you'll call me Lala.
Okay, Lala. You played this on Babies with Knives as well, right?
Not yet. We were scheduling for it, but Brandon and I both have the book, and I've gotten to go through it a bit. Brandon's gone through it more. I think that there's some fun things for it. It's really easy for people to just jump in and entry level, and for people to not be overwhelmed. The book itself, the first 20 pages and then 20 more pages, they're the character creation and then the rules. So it only takes 40 pages of it. And it's not a very big book. And then the rest of it is several settings that they offer you. So even if you're not necessarily saying, I want to play Tiny Supers, but you're like, well, I need a setting, you can pull out the main setting in the book, or you can pull out one of a number of them that are in the back. So it's a nice little resource book. And I'm really looking forward to trying it.
Okay, sounds good. And last but not least, the anticipation is killing me. Third place was we're almost there. We're so close.
It's almost like you didn't know who it was.
I know, right?
The anticipation.
What a surprise!
City of Mists. Can you guys hear that?
Yes, I can hear it.
I heard
There's
the applause.
A big applause.
That was the tiny big applause to go with Tiny Supers. Oh wait, that was last time.
Yes.
City of Mist core bundle. City of Mist core bundle. Player's guide and MC toolkit. from Son of Oak Game Studio. Our friend who's actually came on here a few years ago back to run a demo for us, Amit Musha. And boy, that was a fun game, wasn't it, Walt?
That really was a fun game, and very interesting in how the mechanics worked.
Yeah, that's the only Powered by the Apocalypse game I can remember playing. And yeah, it was very gnawish, very fun. 1 foot firmly in both genres, Nor and Supers. And I thought that was great. Have you guys played it yet?
I have played it. That one actually appealed to me because it reminds me a lot of the novels I write, because I do write fantasy, superhero, noir books. And I was immediately drawn into the art style and the rule setting. And I don't know, it was a nice gritty game to sort of get into to simulate that style of superhero stuff.
I had no idea you were a writer, Alex. That's really cool.
I am. My first novel came out last March. It's called The Magician's Sin.
Okay.
Oh,
We've
wow.
been trying to do more podcasts focusing on the creative process and writers and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a whole process.
And now you have a person to talk to.
I've
Just
never had
one, though.
of those. Just one. That's all. Oh, hey, I found your book. That's a cool cover, too. Let me share this because we have modern technology that can do that.
Yay.
We have the technology. We can produce it.
And boom, there it is. That is a cool cover. I like how it's understated.
That is.
Yeah. I got really lucky, and I worked with a girl at my day job who was willing to do a book cover for me, and she did exactly what I designed for it. And I don't know, it's awesome. It's the story of a grizzled wizard who's trying to rescue his ex-wife from mobsters and monsters in the 1930s before this apocalyptic event takes place.
The cover.
Go ahead.
Oh, Mike.
No, go ahead.
The cover really has a very similar flavor to the Night Circus.
Mm-hmm. I like the Night Circus a lot. That's is that the Vampire Circus book?
No.
No.
It's the very old wizard having a bet with another very old wizard, and bets his daughter.
Oh yeah.
I got to tell you, he's this particular wizard is very forward thinking for his time, going to rescue his ex-wife.
Well, her daughter was paying him for it, so being an immortal wizard doesn't mean you don't get to pay rent.
Yeah.
And it's on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to read it for free, it is on Kindle Unlimited.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know if you can keep in track of Owen Stevens' social media. He's working up a setting called Sorcerers and Speakeasies.
I have been keeping up with that over on Twitter, I think.
Yeah, if you're interested, I'm going to try to get him on the podcast next week to talk to Craig Campbell, who's doing Capers, which is similar Nor flavored setting, and kind of talk about that a little bit if you're up for it. So
yeah, that'd be great.
But now is the time on BAMF when we talk about judges spotlights. And let me go over to my list here. Alice, you're first, and
alphabetical order by height.
Do you mind skipping me for just a sec? I had my file pulled up and I lost it.
Did you? Okay.
Yes,
sure.
I need to go find it again.
All
Go to
right,
the next person. I'll go next.
Okay, because I'm trying to pull these up on drive-thru as we're talking about it. Here it is, and let's share this out real fast. Walt, I'm going to you because you were next to my list.
I love when that happens.
All right.
Go which one first?
Survive
Cool.
this. The team up.
Yep. So that's the. Is that the team up book? Yeah, there it is.
Yes,
yeah. So
team
the great thing about these games is that they were basically created to emulate. I hate when I get muted. The great thing about these games is that they were basically created to emulate the animated series that a lot of us grew up with during the 90s.
Animaniacs, I feel you.
Yes, Animaniacs. Oh God, what was Pinky and the Brain? I mean,
I was actually joking. You were meaning Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles it draws very heavily from Batman the Animated Series. If you took those two, sent them out on a date with plenty of lunch money, and 9 months later you came out with Survive This Vigilante City. It's pretty much the way it went. The superhero team up just takes that to like the new level because it gives you that fun feel of like Spider-Man and his amazing friends, with the cheesy intro and the weird fire monster that they got to deal with and stuff like that. The fun thing about this is there's a lot of new options for the game. So vehicles, you get bases, which a lot of like base info, which is really, really cool. And then, of course, the whole construction of the superhero team itself. I was a backer on the Kickstarter, got the books mid-year, and it was a lot of fun to have that done. And then, of course, following it up with its companion, which was Into the Sewers, and there's that real heavy TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, radioactive black belt hamsters vibe that everybody was going for during that time. The artwork is fun, lots of cool anthropomorphs, if that's the word.
Anthropomorphic.
Right. So, I mean, weird organizations. There's plenty of mutations. The thing that got me was in reading this was, they have an entire section on sewer hazards, and I'm like, did somebody have to do research for this? What kind of boots do you need to wear when you're doing research for sewer hazards?
There's a D100 random sewer underworld adventure hook.
Oh my God, so good, right?
Yeah. I like to think they just took some poor guy and just stuck him in the sewer for 4 hours and made him come out with a D100 for what he experienced.
What's it like down there, man?
Was it a whole nother world? I mean, is it? And the fun thing about this is you could create everything from the standard Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle like sewer layer to if you watched the Golden Army, the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy sequel, that underworld like night market, you could create that too with this. So there's a lot of options for this, a lot of interesting perspective on doing a campaign this way. I mean, and if you didn't want to like go full on, if you didn't want to go full on like mutant, like samurai bunny rabbit bodyguard or something like that, you could go all you could do like a mini X-Men or even like a Morlocks with this, which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, those are my picks. So Vigilante City, Superhero Team Up, and Vigilante City Into the Sewers from the Survive This line from Bloat Games. Very, very worth its price tag, and I think lots and lots of fun at the game table.
Okay, cool. I am trying to find Lala's. I hate calling you Lala. I really do. I'm sorry.
No, you can call me Lala, like I said. And I realized if you're going to pull them up, I don't need my notes because I was just like, I don't want to forget what my picks were, or what Brandon and I's picks were.
Okay, well, here's the second one. We already talked about the other one.
My second one. Yeah, the first one where you talked about, which was Hit the Streets, Defend the Block. Yeah. That was my top. And but the second one, I came across Spectaculars while I was researching for Bamfsies and doing some research. There are things about it that I thought was really interesting. They definitely took a different spin with it. And so for me, it's a bit of an honorable mention because I think that for me, it's a greater resource than it is to actually play it as a game. How Spectaculars works is it's a bit of a Mad Libs style of building your own comic book. So from the beginning, when you sit down with your table, nobody has any concept of what is going on or what the setting is and such. And you have these pages of different possible scenarios that you guys want to approach, and each one comes with a questionnaire. And so that questionnaire is, kind of a Mad Libs thing, and your table starts filling in the blanks and figuring out where they want to be, what they want to do, how they want to grow. And so for me, while I don't think that the actual play itself is my thing, I think that it's a great resource for people who are like, I don't know what to do for session 0, guys. And we all know people like that, don't we? So I wanted to give them just an honorable mention and hit them up on that because I think it's a great resource. And for my third pick, we also already talked about that.
There was a third pick?
Yeah, I sent you a second message, which was kind of Brandon and I's thing, which was just, we already hit that already, which is Tiny Supers. I think there's a lot of good things about it, which we already talked about.
Oh, I missed that email. Okay, cool.
No problem.
No, I can add that in before getting it to Andrew Goodward. And speaking of Andrew, just so you know, this will be going on exclusively on Geek Native, is what I believe is happening. So
Awesome.
if you're watching it live, you're part of a select group that's going to see it before we kind of hide it, unlist it so it can come out exclusively first on Geek Native. So
Awesome.
so that's the thing. And now we're getting to Alex's picks, or Alex's pick. There's just the one, right?
Yeah, I only sent the one in. I had a little trouble finding stuff that I hadn't already worked on, and I didn't want to put anything forward that I'd already worked on. So I decided to nominate the Hazard Studios' new line of 3D printable terrain that they're putting out. Mostly because I do a lot of theater of the mind playing at my game tables, but having something like this at my table mostly would help, I think, inspire players to engage with the environment in a more interactive and creative way. And a lot of the terrain I've tried to find to build big tables, especially for my convention games, has all been fantasy flavored stuff. And this is filling what I think is a very important niche in the genre, especially in regards to those big show-stopping games that you might see at like a Gen Con or an Origin, stuff like that.
All right, cool. That is a cool thing. It's kind of took me by surprise. Oh, David Woodrum, I knew him. He did some of the music for Stark City.
He did.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about this because I've just always been theater of the mind when I've run games, but I could see, especially if you're using miniatures, how this would really take things to the next level.
And with the advent of 3D printers being more and more affordable, and you see them propping up in more than just that one kid's science class where he absolutely stole filament and printed out 3D minis for his table. This is something that can benefit a wider audience because rather than going out and just trying to find that one random piece of terrain, you go to Drive-Thru RPG, you put in your search criteria, because you have that big evil bad guy and his lair, and what's a mwahaha guy to do if he doesn't have a huge bank of computers to throw his fist up in the air or rub his hands or push the cat off of, because they either have one of those three.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I thought you were done. Sorry. I was just going to say, also, it's not confined to the tabletop role playing. It's, we do miniature gaming, and that is a great one. Like Alex was saying, there's always just the fantasy terrain that you can buy, and building anything non-fantasy is a pain in the butt. Also, for example, on the miniatures game, the Crisis Protocol, they let you use your own terrain. You just have to mark size. So this is a great addition to your terrain table.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the models have done very, very well. Huge kudos to Dominique Sumner, who went out and chased down Dave Woodrum and kind of made this stuff happen. Dom and the crew that he works with at New Millennium Games have done a fantastic job, not only promoting Hazard Studio and Supers, but also their own game line as a result. I mean, he's very prolific in writing scores of characters, teams, the Merc book for Supers, which is, you have that big evil bad guy who just needs to hire a bunch of thugs. That's your source book for doing that. So, I mean, to have 3D models that go along with that is very cool. And the also complements Supers, as Supers has its own rule set for miniatures play as well. So very, very cool. And I think Mike's microphone has died. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're usually good for that right around now in the broadcast. He'll be right back.
Be right back.
Mike's got that Harry Dresden thing going on with his technology.
Yes. Gremlins. Some people just have gremlins.
No, all he needs is like an enchanted hockey stick. It'll be fine.
Mhm.
Um,
But yes, I have loved the miniatures, and I was like, would it seem a little a little biased if I nominated them? Yeah, I probably should. I'm like, I hope somebody else does that isn't me.
I wanted to nominate him, and I'm just like, oh,
But see, it's your own company, and for me, it's a bit biased because Walt's one of my favorite people.
oh, thank you.
You're
I love
welcome.
I
I
love being
snuck it
favorite
in.
people. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
don't let it get to your head.
Yeah, and I wanted to feature something that wasn't just a role-playing game supplement like a traditional one.
Go for it.
I mean, there's loads of great superhero traditional supplements out there right now.
So
I don't know how you guys narrowed it down.
Have you gotten to try any 3D terrain or anything like that?
I have. My brother actually bought a 3D printer, so he's probably printed like 300 or 400 miniatures at this point. Because
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, he can get a whole sheet of the filament for $50, and he's been doing it. He wants to play some of the Games Workshop's games, so he's been buying the STLs for that. And I was like, hey, I want to do some big dioramas for some of the convention games I'll be running this year.
Nice.
And he's been working with me on that. So I'm
Now,
really
how hard are
excited
the
about that.
STL files to track down, other than like on something like Drive-Through RPG?
I only look for them on Drive-Through RPG. I think he has a lot of other ways of tracking them down, but I'm not 100% sure how he does it. I know he says, "Oh, what do you need?" and then he finds them.
Nice.
Oh, hey, from Richard Rogers. In celebration of the Bamfsies Award, Hit the Streets, Defend the Block is now 33% off on Drive-Thru RPG right now.
That's
I
Woohoo!
love
awesome.
when stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to pick that up because I've been working on some of the street level stuff, and I think that I like the idea of the players building the city with the game master. I really love the group storytelling that's being augmented and displayed on a lot of the popular games these days.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea. So you don't. Go ahead.
Go, Mike.
No, I had one game I was jamming back in the 90s where I would like spend 4 hours a week, holed up in a Noble Roman somewhere drinking my lifetime's worth of iced tea and breadsticks and trying to, build the world, thoroughly. And it just seems like so much healthier and more fun to do it with your group.
Yes.
So, sorry, Lala, you were saying?
Oh, I was just going to describe that in the game, how it works is each street or a building and then labels and gives it some information, and then you just take turns going around and until you have basically, a couple city blocks worth. And so it's really cool. And then there are rules to track as things are changing in the city. So if a building is destroyed by a supervillain, how that affects stuff and how that affects morale of the players and such like that. So
yeah, and one of the most important things about a street level game is making the heroes care about that particular neighborhood or that particular microcosm of a city. I mean, Daredevil only cares about Hell's Kitchen most of the time.
mhm.
And
That's where his
making that
favorite
feel
watering
like a
hole is.
making that feel like a living, breathing place that the players are actively invested in. And if you make them come up with it, that does like 80% of the work for you.
Yep.
Do you think there's a common theme of when everybody creates their blocks of that one place that everybody loves, like the YMCA or something like that? Is there one thing that happens on every block?
You can get a good meal, or you can get yourself free. You can do it. That's a good question. What do you guys think?
Hmm.
Yeah, I would think you definitely need, the universal taco shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what's happened in some of my games.
What about the classic little hole in the wall ramen shop?
Yes. Oh my God, that'd be cool.
the convenience store?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
corner store.
little bodega or something like
Yeah,
that.
or a barbershop. There's a lot of barbershops, especially with Luke Cage. How
Luke
popular
Cage,
Pops
that
was.
barbershop was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, come to think of it, I mean, Luke Cage and Daredevil were the two Netflix shows I like best, and they both had that kind of sense of place. I mean, more Luke Cage because the barbershop was a huge deal, but in
I love the swear jar.
the swear jar was a cool touch.
I would personally end up funding some poor kid's education with that swear jar.
We've got one upstairs since we've had a kid the last 6 years that's filled to the top with dollars and quarters. So
Is that for the college fund or?
it's part of it. Well, you're a single man going through your 20s and 30s, and all of a sudden you're married, and you can't just say "motherfucking cunt sucking cock sucking mother." God, you can't. Yeah, you can't right there. You got to be like, Gosh darn it.
You got to go
Are we
Yosemite
gonna have
Sam
to
it.
bleep that out before we hit Geek Native there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
PG-13,
Swear jar
you
in
can swear once
reality,
in a while.
We do have an explicit tag on iTunes and YouTube, but yeah. Well, YouTube gets really sensitive if I think you're making a video for kids, because there's a lot of really weird YouTube videos for kids. So I like to make it clear that, anyway, yeah. So having just unleashed a tapestry of profanity that's now floating somewhere across the Rocky Mountains, I would like to thank Alexander Thomas for joining us. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of the show, and I'm so glad I got to be a part of this.
Well, thanks.
Awesome.
We'll try to get you back next week for that conversation. Alice/Lala, thanks for coming on. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Walt, once again, always glad to have you.
I am apparently Walt/Bark. Jerk.
And to everyone who voted and spread the word and nominated their favorite publishers, thank you very much. It's one of the best Bamfsies ever. And we will be posting all in the show notes will be links. Know Your Baldur's Pet. Oh, that's the private chat I'm looking at. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Baldur's Gate joke for a second.
Oh, it's we tried the gate, when we first got him, and he's like, "Did you know that we jump?" So I was like, no, that whole Belgian Malinois thing where they jump 15 feet. Wow, he can really jump that gate.
We should really just morph to having a Belgian Malinois centric podcast here one of these days. There's
God,
there's an untapped market.
I need to create one of those videos where it's like him just walking around, but then all the subtitles hit the screen all over the place, all misspelled. I'm a huge fan of those Tucker videos. Oh my God.
Brandon sends you a lot of those, I heard.
Alice and Brandon send me those repeatedly, and I have to make sure I'm not either driving or drinking coffee when these hit my inbox.
Fair enough. Well, I need to get back to my soul deadening day job. So thanks.
Huge thanks to Geek Native pushing us out.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you very much, Andrew Goodward. I will send you an email right after we finish here with the link and all the winners. And we will see you next time on the Banff Podcast.
Bye, all.
Boom!
Now, there's the awkward silence after I hit end broadcast, but before the broadcast.